Hi, my name is Carl Steele. Unfortunately, all my thank you for staying for the last talk jokes are now used up. I work, pardon me? I work for Lumeta Corporation, and we are born of Lucent Technologies with Cell Labs Technologies, actually. And we are an extension of the technology used to do the Internet Mapping Project, which both Cedric and a few other people have been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. We've taken that technology and applied it to customer intranets, and what I wanted to show you was we can discuss the bits and bytes of how we actually gather the data and such. But what I found more interesting for this talk is what the data, how you can interpret the actual imagery on the map. So what do? We connect to a client network, and take the internet where we're connected, and send in a whole bunch of packets and get most of them back, or get responses to most of them back. And then we build a map and some data files and show the customer what they have and possibly what they didn't know they had. So it all started with the internet, the smashed key socket, some people call it. You saw it on Wes's presentation yesterday. It's been floating on the net for several years. So why is this important? Well, there's a lot of data in these maps, and there's a lot of data in ISPs, in large intranets, on the internet, of course, and what this conveys is it puts onto a single page, in the case of some of these pages 36 by 40 inches, a whole lot of structural information that would take tons and tons of tables. And without going into studies I'm sure some people here have dealt with before, visualization is how people think. You can look at a map almost immediately and get an idea if there's something bad or if there's something good going on, whereas being somebody who's been in security for 20 years, I'm sick and tired of looking at logs. The map's called attention to anomalies. So this is a typical intranet. It's a little bit more sparse than the internet, but it's still, in some cases, very complex. This is a large technology corporation, I think. I forget which one it is, and if you remember, it wouldn't matter. But they have a bunch of networks, some clustered in a central core, and then others going off the grand processes, and some, in this case, the network looks pretty sane, so this represents the low likelihood of most of the company and not much of any other company. So there's probably a spin-off or two there, or an acquisition that the company didn't know about. So, why does this matter for ISPs? Well, for ISPs, order matters. And when I say order matters, I mean ordering of your network. Laying out the wires correctly, laying out the paths, laying out the routes, laying out the IP addresses. This is what you guys do. The guys in the big corporations do this as well, but in most cases they're not making their bread and butter from it. It's what enables them to be banks, or enables them to be airlines, or enables them to be oil companies, but it doesn't, they don't get paid by the bit. From what we've found from doing a couple of ISPs, some of which in this room, your networks that you lay out for your customers are extremely highly organized. If that could be any more redundant. And hopefully they're that way also. But there are still organic components in these networks that have grown over time and look more like old London than Midtown Manhattan. So this is what an ISP looks like. Guess which part is the managed part? The part to the left, which I call the peacock just before the windshield, is actually quite pretty and shows a lot of structure and order that went into developing this network. The upper right-hand corner is the customer's or the ISP's corporate network. The facilities, where the accountants live, the marketing people, the sales people, developers, everybody who isn't using their network space for putting up their websites or their email systems or what have you. I don't know how well you can see it. It looks just as good as Wes's map yesterday. In the lower right-hand corner is a little tiny outcropping that looks a little bit less ordered. And I'll get to what that is in a moment. So what can we find? I'll go through this one quickly. It's mostly marketing hype. But we can find things you didn't know about, and we can find things that you knew about that may not be the way you want them to be. We can find routing table errors, or in the map we can find routing table errors. This particular map shows clearly, and I say clearly because I've looked at enough of these that now it's clearly, the thing in the lower left-hand corner, if I take the coloring away, you'd still say has less entropy in it than the thing in the upper right-hand corner. The thing in the upper right-hand corner is the ISP of this corporation. And due to some routing table misconfigurations, there were routes or paths out to the internet from this customer or this company. And this is something that, you can look at the data, and I can show you tons and tons of tables, and figure that out. Or you look at this map, in about 2 seconds, when this came off our plotter, say, well, there's something odd there, let's go take a look at it. This one was a little bit less easy to figure out. You actually need to look at the data a little bit. This network, the router that's in colored red, actually represents a machine that this customer thought had been retired. It turned out to be the 5th most connected router on this network. And the thing in the upper right-hand corner behind the red blob was a spin-out company. The thing in the lower left is the actual corporation that's hired to do this. And I can't do it here because I don't have the interactive tools that we have with me, but there's about 11 red lines going between the two of them. If you cut them, the two networks break completely. And strangely enough, they all connect through that router. I don't know if that router's been retired since. This is about a year old now. So let's go back to the ISP. I gave away a little bit of the show before, but basically, when this came off our plotter, I was impressed because this was the first ISP that we actually did, and I said, this has to have some sort of value. This definitely looks like looking at an X-ray or an MRI and saying, wow, look at the information here. So in the middle, the big blob is the managed portion, the corporate network on the upper right-hand side. Guess where the leak is? The leak is in the lower right-hand side and represents a couple of misconfigured routers. It's a little trickier, being that ISPs connect to one another, so what does the leak to the internet mean for an ISP? We're not quite sure, but it was worth pointing out to the customer that these routes were not where they expected them to be. So in conclusion, and of course we're not going to have conclusion, what we do is we condense information into a compact form. We, of course, provide you with tons and tons of trace routes and things that we've done as raw data, and you can look at them and shove them in databases and such. But the topological features that I look at a network, and people who work that are with me as well, and say, this is good, this is bad, this is indifferent. And I was given a word of warning by Ches, actually by Steve Bellevin through Bill Cheswick, that these guys are going to be a tough audience if they believe they can know every nit and detail of their networks, and you may well. I have no proof that you do or don't. But I still think that having a picture of something, whether you find out that it's perfectly managed or whether you find out that it's got holes in it, we believe that has value. And that's about it. Questions?
Okay, I'll start with the obvious question here. So where do we download this? Is it free? How much do you charge for it?
You and I have never met, have we, sir?
Not yet.
It's not a school-issue service, and I'd rather leave this to be a technical discussion. And you and I can talk afterwards. If there are any technical questions, it's difficult for me to stand between the fine line of advertising and technical presentation. I'm trying to really stay on the technical stuff. Anyone else? No? Bueller?